That was well done. I'd like to call the meeting to order. The only regrets I have today are from Chair Dale, but I have good news. He's well on the mend, should be back next week. You won't have to endure me much longer. You'll also notice, you also notice I haven't overdone my welcome by wearing the necklace again because I just thought that was a once-in-a-lifetime event. It was a heavy responsibility and it weighed heavily on my shoulders. So today I'm unencumbered. I could be flying by the end of the meeting. Be quiet. Anybody else that's missing is just late or tied up in another meeting. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing none, seeing one. Mr. Medeiros, Councillor.
I'd like to add for other business. Have we reached there?
No.
No. Okay, my apologies.
Settle down. Okay, no declarations of conflict of interest. Seeing none. Now we're at approval of the agenda, Councillor Medeiros. No, we're not. We're at the improvement of minutes. See, I'm not any better off than you are. Minutes of September 8, 2016 Regional Council meeting be approved. Someone move it? Councillor Janica. Seconded by Councillor Pelletier. All those in favor? Carried. I'm not going to move ahead. Okay, that the agenda for the September 22nd, 2016 Regional Council meeting include an additional communication from Carrie DeGortner, Town Clerk, Town of Caledon, regarding the town's Accessibility Advisory Committee report recommendation, which is in your folders, on the Badlands project to be dealt with under items related to Public Works, item 7.2. And further, that the agenda for the September 22nd Regional Council meeting be approved as amended. And while we're doing this, I'm going to move 11.3, Toronto and Regional Conservation Authority new administrative office building, up to after 5.4, just so we can get people back to work and out of here. Can someone, and Councillor Medeiros, you wanted to make a motion?
I'm on the board.
Yes, you are, but he was there ahead of you.
No.
Yes, he was. Go ahead.
No, that's not what it says.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just under new business, I'd like to add Brampton Meals on Wheels.
And where would you like to add that?
Under other business, 13.1.
Councillor Shaughnessy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Anyways, I would like to withdraw my motion on the Badlands.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bounce around a lot on this one, don't you?
No, I'm just going to withdraw it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so you've got 4 changes to the agenda. Everybody has them firmly planted in their heads. Someone will move approval of the agenda. Councillor McFadden, seconded by Councillor Downey. All those in favor? Okay. And the first delegation, 5.1, Susan Robertson, President, Credit Valley Heritage Society, and Dave Beaton, Manager, Community of Outreach, Credit Valley Conservation, presenting the Credit Valley Trail, which will be a continuous heritage trail, an active transportation corridor stretching from Port Credit to Orangeville along the Credit Valley, and it's also 6.1, which will move up. Welcome.
I'd just like to start off by saying Dave is no longer involved on this project. He's moved to the city of Guelph.
So when you have a woman in charge, you don't need backup.
Exactly. You read my mind. So thank you so much, everybody, for having me here today. My name is Susan Robertson. I'm the president of the Credit Valley Heritage Society. And here with me today is the CAO of Credit Valley Conservation, Deb Martin-Downs, as well as the Executive Director of Credit Valley Conservation Foundation, Terry LaRue. And with their support, I'm delighted to officially introduce you to the Credit Valley Trail project. So, as a legacy project, the Credit Valley Trail has been a long time in the making, 60 years as a matter of fact, when it was first introduced as a touring route for cars along the river. But after many years of interest and committed, tireless effort from many different organizations and community groups, this vision of the Credit Valley Trail is now finally being realized. So the vision of the trail is to create, as you mentioned, a continuous river trail from the Credit's headwaters to its mouth for both hiking and cycling, connecting 4 bioregions from Lake Ontario to the Greenbelt to the Niagara Escarpment via the main Credit Valley. The Credit Valley Trail will be a critical north-south link that will connect the Waterfront Trail to the Trans-Canada Trail, to the Elora Cataract Trailway, and to the Greenbelt route, all coincidentally, which travel east-west. So this is our north-south link. But the goal of the Credit Valley Trail is much greater than trying to create a trail that would follow the banks of the main Credit Valley. Our goal is to bring the history of the Credit River to life by not only showing the Credit as a world-class destination, which we all know it already is, but by highlighting the special places of natural and cultural heritage interest that are found hidden along the banks of the river, that are significant to the development of Canada. As many of you know, in this country, we might not be the best at promoting our heritage. And linking heritage to outdoor rec and to economic opportunity. And this project aims to do all of these things. So the lead partners in this project are the people that I've introduced, the Credit Valley Conservation Foundation, and the Credit Valley Heritage Society. And we've come together through generous support from the Greenbelt. This slide above you shows what we've committed to doing for the Greenbelt over a 2-year period, for which we're already halfway through. We're going to form a steering committee, identify a route, develop 20 destinations of natural and cultural heritage interest along that route, connect with our First Nations, host a leadership forum, write a final master trail plan, which is due this time next year, and then seek council endorsement from that plan. This project is of interest to the Greenbelt because it promotes a regional trail network, and it offers great opportunity for cycling investment from an economic point of view. So it's certainly a signature project for them, and we're working together quite well. To date, we have a lot of partners, and for this we are extremely grateful. It's actually sort of astounding how many people have come to the table. This is a high-level reflection of the people we have involved in our steering committee. The email list is over 100 people long, and again, we are extremely grateful for the tangible commitment that all of these different groups are bringing to the project. It's bringing us many amazing synergies and growing this project in a whole bunch of new directions, which is great. So where are we at? 1 year through, we've accomplished a lot. We have our steering committee formed. We have a preliminary draft hiking and cycling route identified. We have our 18 destinations. We didn't quite make 20. We have around 18 or 19 discovered, which are actually the small historic villages that follow the banks of the river. We have additional funding requested into the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport. We hope to retain a tourism consultant as part of this project that will really elevate this master plan to the next level. We're looking for detailed tourism plans for all of these 18 destinations. We have a second grant into the ministry for our First Nations Roundtable. We're working with First Nations from across the watershed. We have the Six Nations, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, we have the Anishinaabe, the Mississauga, the New Credit First Nations, we have the Métis, we have a lot of people with us. And we're looking to remunerate their time as they help us develop where their spirit stories and sacred teachings may be shared as culturally appropriate along the route. And then lastly, we're developing a series of municipal action plans. These action plans are based on the needs of this draft alignment. And we've identified them on a municipal by municipal basis. So we're able to say to each municipality that we're working closely with in partnership, these are our needs, and this is essentially how we can shake it out if we want to achieve the Credit Valley Trail. This is what needs to happen for implementation. And we're going to be continuing to work together with our municipal partners in that regard moving into the fall. So we have a lot going on. Here before you are just some facts as the Credit Valley Trail relates to the region of Peel. The Credit Valley Trail has a lot to offer for the region. 2/3 of the route is in Peel. 13 or 14 of the destinations we've identified along the way are in Peel. And again, these are the small historic villages that follow the banks of the river. And just with respect to this, and sort of growing the green belt and linking sustainable transportation and all the other ways in which this project reflects regional plans, strategies, and objectives, I wanted to give special recognition and thanks to both Wayne Chan and Arthur Lowe for their continued support and recognition of the synergies that this project brings to bear for the region. So thanks to both of them for recognizing all the opportunity. Now I want to move forward and just give you guys, this is very hard to see and I apologize, but this is our draft alignment as it relates to the region of Peel. As you can see, we have a pink line, which is both hiking and cycling. Where it's solid, the trail exists. Where it's dashed, the trail is proposed. So as I'm sure you can identify right away, the trail follows a lot of existing trail networks, namely in Mississauga, the Column Trail. Where it's a dash line, we are proposing maybe extending the trail where possible. And we've identified on this particular map, again, not the easiest to read, the destinations in Mississauga that we hope to promote: Port Credit, Arundel, Streetsville, and Meadowvale Village. Moving further down into Brampton, we have a lot of work to do here. Most of the trail does not exist, almost in its entirety. You'll also see an orange line here. The orange line is where hiking only is proposed, and the same rules apply. So where it's a solid line, it exists, and where it's dashed, it's proposed. I also want to give special thanks to Brampton staff, who are doing a wonderful job in parks planning under John Spencer and Brian Smith. They're taking great leadership there for us, where arguably there's the most amount of work to do. So we're really grateful for their support and their enthusiasm in seeing this trail happen. Again, in Brampton, you can see the villages that we're hoping to promote: Churchville, Huttonville, and then really those two only. Moving into Caledon, we also have a lot of work to do. We've piggybacked on the Caledon Trailway here. There may be opportunity for other routes at some point in the future. The trail does some divergences in Caledon, which we're working through, but there's still a lot of work that we're looking to have happen. And this is Caledon North. We've sort of divided it from north to south. So where are these villages, and how do they relate to the region? Well, there's a lot of them in the region of Peel, as I've mentioned. As approximately 13 or 14. And as I said, they are the small historic villages that follow the main valley. And the reason why we have chosen them is because they are a natural concentration of natural and cultural heritage along the banks of the river. And they tell in the significance of the river to their development. And so it's through these villages that we hope to identify all the features of natural and cultural heritage interests that apply to the Credit River, and then promote them through this trail in and along this trail. Here are some examples of the features I'm talking about. We have the Badlands. We have a beautiful exposed shale wall along the Column Trail, rather. We have old growth trees. All of these things fall under natural heritage. And we look forward to exploring with our First Nations Roundtable additional natural heritage features they might be interested in sharing as part of their spirit teachings and their history. Here are some cultural heritage features found within the region of Peel that promote and directly relate to the history of the Credit River. Ultimately, the goal is that in phase 2 of this project for 2018, we're going to create an online tool. So we're going to take this master plan and digitize it. We want to create a mapping product where people will be able to trip plan and explore the beauty of the Credit, whatever your interest might be, if it's heritage mills, if it's cycling to those mills, if it's First Nations heritage, if it's cultural heritage settlements or certain types of heritage buildings, or if it's just finding public access to the river in all the different locations. We're going to show you how you can hike and bike it from point A to point B. We'll make it easy for you, too. We'll show you where the parking lots are, where the washrooms are, and everything else. That's the goal, at least. And again, through a tourism consultant, which we hope to retain as part of our ministry funding application, they'll be able to package this nicely for us. And we'll be working with the steering committee, which has representatives from across the watershed, to help us tailor it to all of your specific needs. So where are we at next? Well, we have a lot of work to do with Wayne and Arthur as part of the Sustainable Transportation Plan, and we're really grateful for them including us in this project. But we also have a lot of other work to do with other people at the region. Presently, the greatest opportunity for the Credit Valley Trail in the region of Peel is land acquisition. Our needs are in northern Mississauga, throughout Brampton and the Credit Valley, and then in northern Caledon. If we really want to see the Credit Valley Trail reach its fullest potential, we need to get it off the roadway and get it through the valley. That's sort of the goal. Second to land acquisition, we need help developing safe road crossings along the route and building cycling infrastructure along the roadways. Again, that would be an interim measure until the land needed is acquired, and then we would redirect it. We also look forward to coordinating with regional staff where appropriate on our tourism results and our First Nations roundtable planning. So that's the Credit Valley Trail in a very small nutshell. I want to thank everybody today for this opportunity. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to contact us directly. Thanks very much.
Well, we have some questions right now. Councillor Unica.
Thank you very much, and maybe I should warn the chair, you're going to have to give me the hook at some point. I'm sure you will.
Behave
because
yourself,
this
Councillor.
means so much to me and so many of us. Susan, thank you so much for the initiative. I mean, it's just brilliant. And the word that encapsulates it is legacy. This is a legacy initiative of leaving something marvelous behind in terms of the quality of life that we expect for people in the region of Peel beyond. The privilege of being chair of the CVC, I want to acknowledge Deb and Terry that are here and all the work that they've done on this initiative, especially Terry, because, and I'm coming to my point, my first one, remarkable that they're smarter than us when it comes to understanding land. I'm talking to my colleagues around the table. Have any of you ever thought of the irony of this? One of our biggest jobs is making other people rich on land. I just had a development application go through in my ward, and when it was all said and done, the original homeowner said, "Councillor, I want to thank you. I think you had great service over 30 years, and what I thank you for especially is the $60,000 home that I bought before you, around when I was being born, you've just allowed me to sell for $4 million. Development process, 6 blocks were bought, $25 million. And here's the irony. We did that for them. With intensification, with development, we did that for them. We kind of know where it's going because we approve it. And yet we're not rich on land. How ironic is that? We have to buy land. We have to buy lots of land because we're intensifying. We're the ones doubling the density in the GTA, and we know it. So why wouldn't we be buying land that creates a legacy for the future while creating a tremendous asset for future ratepayers? But also, if we believe the intensification mantra, we owe it to them. If we're asking people to say, don't grow out and eat up the next chunk of farmland and valuable land, please grow up on floor 32 of this building. Don't live in 5,000 square foot homes or 3,000, live in 800 because you're helping the environment. As a legacy, I owe them the Credit Valley Trail to say that's where you will recreate now. And parks, and another central park. The other irony in all of this, and I'll be coming to this and I'm setting it up for next year, my dream of charging a toonie on the water bill to buy land. Do you know why? Because that land upstream creates the water that you use. Not a bad investment. And maybe your grandchildren will visit it tomorrow. Isn't that something? And that land is $5,000 an acre, maybe 10, as opposed to the $5 million an acre that land sells for in my constituency. How much simpler than this does it get? So I commend you because it's ironic that outside agencies are doing a better job than we are. And again, I tip my hat to Terry and the CVC and my colleagues on the CVC. This is not complicated. And going forward, I gave the same little speech and mantra yesterday to my colleagues at City, with the LRT coming up and down the corridor, do a little bit of math, my ward is owed about 4 community centers. Can we start buying the land for the first one? Before I put the LRT in, and what I didn't buy 5 years ago for $5 million, I got to buy for 10? And then people say, how stupid can you be? You engineered all of this. You knew it was coming. Did you think it was going to go down in value? Has anybody in the history of North America regretted buying land 30 years ago? I'll leave it at that, and I thank you for allowing me to cue it up. My kudos first and foremost to you, because you're on the right path. I hope we will be following you more in earnest and more vigorously in the years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Susan, you've just been used. Councillor Rath?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And boy, I just hate following Nando. Hate it.
Yes, don't we all?
Thank you for coming today, Susan. And I know that I will give a shout out to Dave Beaton. I know he's in the city of Guelph now, but he has done a lot of work on this. And thanks to Deb and Terry for coming today. I'll put my Credit Valley Conservation Foundation hat on. I sit on that as vice chair. This is a massive undertaking, and as Nando said, this is truly creating an asset for everybody. I'm especially, we're going to be challenged with all of the privately owned lands that go along this corridor. I know it'll probably link up with the Mississauga Scenic Route that exists and link up with other bicycle and active transportation routes that are already in existence, which is great. I think that when you came and we did the CVCF visioning session, this was one thing that people from all areas of the watershed can get behind and galvanize around, and it's something that will be very tangible in the future. So I'm always happy to support it, and I'm pleased that this is going to be a key part of our fundraising effort over the next few years. Thank you.
Councillor Medeiros?
Thank you, through the chair. Also echoing my colleagues, great work, Susan, Deb, and Terry. Just fantastic. I'm also a member of the foundation, and partly what got me excited was this trail vision. I guess I'd like to ask, in terms of, we talked about the legacy, we talked about the quality of life. I've really viewed this as, especially when I meet with young professionals and they talk about the type of communities that they choose to live in, and corporations follow those young bright professionals. They always talk about the quality of life. So I look at the trail being a legacy item, but also as an economic driver. And I'm wondering, has there been any sort of consideration to do some type of costing exercise, doing some type of economic analysis to really bring home the fact that not only is this will be an economic driver for, it would be for the region, but it has a lot of spillover effects, I think, and it does raise value of our land. It does raise the profile of the type of community that we have, and the type of people that we attract, and the people that want to invest. So, besides just being a tourism or a leisurely, I think the economic impact is something that we can't really underestimate.
Thank you very much. Agreed.
There was no question, there was only
No question,
comments.
that was a rhetorical comment? Okay. Councillor Pelletier, sorry,
And
Councillor
I don't
Medeiros.
think I have really a question. I have more comments, and just to echo my fellow CVC board members that have already spoke, this is something that I'm just so excited to be a part of, and with the fact that there's the 2 points in Brampton and essentially all the trail that in the ward that I represent, it's something that I really look. It's a conflict of interest. Okay, I'll shut up now. I can't wait for this to be start. I can't wait for it to start, let alone be finished, so I can use it. The only issue that I see is the amount of people that are going to be using it, and that is a good issue to have. And I can't wait for the people to be biking, cycling, hiking, walking on these trails. I commend all the work that you guys have done, and great presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Councillor Pelletier. And further just to Councillor Medeiros' remarks, I just wanted to mention, from an economic point of view, the benefit is that it's not solely in a municipality. It's not just one trail beside one subdivision. This is a corridor that goes from bottom to top. And it connects all these other huge corridors that only go east-west. So this is a pedestrian corridor that allows opportunity for education and heritage appreciation along the way. So, so I agree. I think the economic potential on a regional scale is huge. And I want to thank you for that remark.
Thank you. Councillor Shaughnessy.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I have a couple of questions here. I think we can all agree that, having trails is a healthy aspect of life. So I commend the effort. Do we have a time span for implementation of this particular program?
That's an excellent question, and it's one that's sort of difficult to determine. We know the master plan is our first meaningful step forward. Once we have a plan drawn, we have a draft alignment. We know where we can go now, but where we would like to go in the future. I think that question is ultimately determined by the idea of land acquisition. So how long will it take us to acquire the lands that we need to see the ultimate vision take place? Because we can put a trail along a roadway. We can do that. But what kind of experience does that offer people, right? So, working together is the greatest strength of this project, and it certainly expedites it exponentially because we have so many partners involved. We have a collaborative planning process we're using, and everybody who is a major stakeholder sits on our steering committee, and we meet about twice a year. And we have regular ongoing email correspondence. So we hope, Councillor Shaughnessy, that will move things forward. But it is a vision for the future. The master plan will help to certainly bring to the closer future.
What about cost analysis? Have you taken, say, a section in Mississauga or Brampton or Caledon and done some budgetary to actually figure out what it is actually going to cost you? And going back to Anika, as much as I like the idea of maybe a toonie, I think we would need a heck of a lot of toonies. So.
Right.
Is there a cost analysis? I'm going back to like the GTS corridor in Caledon where it was divided up into 6 segments and we knew exactly where we were trying to put it.
Right.
Have you done a segmented cost analysis?
We have done an overall cost analysis. I think it was lowballed, to be honest. The benefit of this project is that it piggybacks on existing trail networks and on existing projects that are already happening at the municipal and regional scale. So we work ourselves into the machinery, so to speak. So we're becoming commenting a stakeholder rather through the EA process. So if there's a bridge that we desperately need an underpass for, then we're part of that committee to say, okay, you know what, this is a really key component for us. So that, in some ways, Councillor Shaughnessy, makes it a little difficult to say because we're almost working within the processes that are ongoing. The greatest, again, back to land acquisition, it's certainly within the tens of millions of dollars. To ultimately see the trail as we'd hope for, probably well over 60. But the high-level analysis that we did is a couple of years old already, and I do think it was probably low. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, I would love to see that.
Okay, great.
That would be
Yeah.
great. Ward 1 in Caledon is my ward. So it's a very large, it's the largest geographical single ward by square miles, and most of your wanting of trail actually goes through my ward. I noticed on the slide you mentioned Inglewood, Bellefontaine, Alton, Melville, and Cataract.
Right.
All in my ward. So I have a particular interest. My concern is public engagement.
Right.
Sometimes I think that agencies don't get out soon enough to engage the public, and public get a little cynical.
Yes.
And rightfully so,
Right.
on that this is the desire and this is where we want to go. Now we need the plan to get us there. And they just feel sometimes like their voice doesn't matter. I'd really like to see you get out soon.
Thank you.
I'd be happy to arrange public town halls,
Thank
whatever,
you.
but they need to be a part of the process now, not down the road when they're just told that this is happening.
I'd like to rest assure you, Councillor Shaughnessy, that I am grassroots. I'm the president of the Credit Valley Heritage Society. So this idea has come from the grassroots, and it's been fed by it. We also, as an urban planner, I pride myself in collaborative planning, which is the format of our steering committee. So you've seen we have all the nations ancestral to the credit. We have the Bruce Trail. We have tons of groups, hiking, cycling, heritage, environment. All of the champions of all different forms of heritage are included on our steering committee. So it's not just levels of government. We have the grassroots with us. We have the Sierra Club of Peel here today to support our presentation as well with Taya Jones. And we're working very closely with the grassroots community. That's who I am. I'm a planner by trade, but I am the president of the Credit Valley Heritage Society. But you are right, and I will certainly take you up on the opportunity
That's great.
to host some town hall meetings. I would love that.
That's great.
Yeah.
The other element that you mentioned, sorry, I had lots of questions.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm got a list here. You mentioned infrastructure.
Right.
And that is really key in Caledon. Those little villages that you mentioned where you want to go, there are no public washrooms.
Right.
We have a problem with, we don't have sewer systems, waste management systems, they're septics. And we have issues with trying to keep that water that Councillor Nika says all flows, well, that flows down through Caledon, and my community is very passionate about keeping that water clear. So we have some real issues. And my concern is, and I just want you to take it back to your table, is that by providing this trail is wonderful, but unless you provide the infrastructure,
Right.
instead of leaving it up to the town of Caledon, I think the necessary infrastructure for those trails have to be part of your plan. You can't just say, well, we'll bring the people, and then town of Caledon has to figure out, one, how to do the parking, and two, how to put the infrastructure in place for sanitary purposes. I think it's a really key factor, not so much when you get down into Brampton and Mississauga, because they'll just go to the next Tim Hortons. Well, you're not going to find that out there. So that's
Yeah.
really, so
Thank you.
that's just a piece of my thought process.
Thank you.
And I think you said cycling. Now, you mentioned Minister of Culture and Tourism.
Yes, that's right.
But he doesn't, or she, doesn't provide infrastructure for cycling. So have you engaged the Minister of Transportation on infrastructure for cycling?
No, not as of yet, but that's an excellent suggestion. We hope the master plan will be our launching off pad.
Okay, because he is the one that actually handles, from what I'm told,
Right.
and what he said to me,
Right.
is that I handled that kind of infrastructure. So I'm just throwing it your way.
Great, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much for all your answers. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Thompson.
Well, thank you very much. And I know you're talking about grassroots and whatever, but there's a lot of, the challenge that you have in the Credit Valley watershed versus TRCA is you have a lot of private land ownership. So how do you make that work? And my son was an international student. He goes to the Hazel McCallion campus down at Sheridan, getting his degree down there, but last year he was in the Netherlands.
Oh, wow.
So we went over to see him. And when you go to Arnhem and Nijmegen and different areas, they have trailway connections all along the Rhine, all through the communities, and they go through farms.
Beautiful.
But the challenge they have is it's both by the country and the province take the lead, and they manage and they put up the cost to build these trails. They have Texas gates where cattle are grazing and people go through. They respect the trail. They respect the environment they're going through. And through a lot of education. And they got the commitment. I think a lot of people don't even know where the food comes from, and where in the Netherlands they do. But the challenge is, I think there's a lot of opportunities. We can do the same thing through Caledon as well as Brampton. I do know there's a lot of private land ownership that still exists, even in Mississauga. So we got to figure out how to make that work. And here it seems to be the impact is on the property owner. We have to help the property owner by getting the province engaged
Right.
to take some ownership, so that it's not an onerous to them, but being a partner to make this happen. It works extremely well over there, and I'm just saying, I think that's something we need to look at. As much as, it's grassroots movement and the Sierra Club and everything's great, but we got to deal with the landowner that's paying the taxes, again, that subsidize conservation and everything else. And we have to find that relationship and trust. And I think that is something you have to work on if you want to have this to be successful.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson.
If I might add a comment, I'm going to be a bit cynical. First of all, I think Alan made an excellent point that you don't have to buy the land, you just have to have a trail through it. And I think a lot of landowners would agree with that, because at a toonie a year, that's 1.5 million on 750,000 people. We're not going to do it. Matter of fact, we're going to lose ground every year. So I think that approach that you've just had from Mayor Thompson's a very good approach. Secondly, George Carlson and I were trustees on the Peel Board in 1985. And we conserved, or helped conserve, 200 acres of land there that the ministry in Ontario thought was a great idea for outdoor education. We had our first productive meeting last night, 35 years later, to decide that the only way to save that farm and turn it into an educational center is to sell a corner of it to developers, those nasty guys who pay $5 million an acre. So I just want you to get your head around the fact that we've been fighting this for 30 years.
Wow.
And grassroots good, groups like Sierra Club good.
Right.
But you're going to need big chunks of money and an alternate way of doing it, as Councillor or Mayor Thompson has suggested. And I think that would be a really good avenue to pursue, just to maybe gate it, let people walk through it, but don't try to buy the land, and see if that works. But
Right, yeah, thank you, Councillor.
good luck.
Thank you very much.
Hope it doesn't take you 35 years.
Thank you.
She's young, and yes. Okay, Councillor Yanika will move receipt of the delegation. Councillor Medeiros will second it. All those in favor? Now, we're going to move 6.1 up, and Councillor Starr is going to take over this part of the meeting for a moment.
Yeah, I guess the active transportation plan certainly relates back to the deputation. So are there any comments, questions on 5.1? Seeing none, moved by Mayor Thompson, seconded by Mayor Jeffrey. All in favor? Carried. Do you want to move the whole,
No, we just moved that one.
Okay.
We just wanted to warm you up a little.
well, there's only one quick item there. so-
Okay, then let's do it.
And it's just communication, and that has to do with the Badlands, and the motion there, which was related to it, has been withdrawn, so it's just receipt of communication. All in favor? Or, I'm sorry, whose area is that? Mine. Moved by, okay, Councillor
And you got
Shaughnessy
7.1.
and Councillor Groves. All in favor? Back to you. I'm done.
You've also got 7.1, which is down here. Do you want to do that one?
That was it.
That was it.
That was it? And you got,
7.1 and 2.
And there's two.
oh, just move it all.
Okay, move it all. Same folks. All in favor? Those opposed? Carried.
You can go, you can have a rest now. Okay, the next delegation is Patrick O'Connor, Regional Solicitor and Director of Legal Services, Region of Peel, presenting the Peel Regional Police Services Board overview, which is related to item 5.3. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This presentation responds to a request by Regional Council for a presentation on the fundamentals of the Police Services Board, and it will be very much focused on fundamentals, not comprehensive, focused on the fundamentals in relation to Regional Council and the region's functions in relation to policing. So, all of this is governed by the structure provided by the Police Services Act, and the Police Services Act makes the region responsible in the first instance for providing what I would call the means by which adequate and effective policing is achieved in the region as a whole. Adequate and effective policing is sort of the benchmark standard that the Police Services Act establishes for policing generally, whether that's in relation to the region's responsibilities, the responsibilities of the board, or the responsibilities of the force. So infrastructure and administration necessary for that purpose is something that the region has an obligation to make available. And it is therefore the source of resources. The Police Services Board is established under the same act for the purpose of providing governance. It too is guided by the same standard of adequate and effective police services, and its responsibilities include the appointment of the chief and the election of the board chair. So it is the governance board for policing in Peel. The means by which this role or these roles are discharged are different depending on the area municipality. In Brampton and Mississauga, the role is discharged by the establishment of a municipal police force, the Peel Regional Police. In Caledon, the roles are performed by, under the current status quo, entering into an agreement for provision of police services by the Ontario Provincial Police. And I should mention that the Police Services Board has as roles with respect to both of those means of providing policing. It is a slightly different role in the Caledon context, and it is the role of governance board for the police service in Brampton and Mississauga. So let's turn to the organizational structure for the Police Services Board itself. It, too, is a creature of the Police Services Act. It is required by law to exist. It's not an optional board. It functions as a non-corporate local board of the region, and that's a little bit loaded terminology, but in simple terms, non-corporate means it doesn't have a separate legal existence. It has the powers and authorities that are conferred on it by the Act, but it doesn't exist as a separate legal entity. And despite that, to add another level of complexity, it has authority under the Act to do things that ordinarily you do require separate legal existence for, like contracting for services, the right to sue and be sued in its own name. It cannot, however, own real property, and that's why you will see things coming before Regional Council for approval in connection with acquisition of real property for police services. The region has to own the real property, and the board itself cannot own that property. So I'll continue that theme of following the money just for a moment, because this is fairly straightforward, and it's something that the council will be quite familiar with as a whole. The Police Services Board submits its estimates. Again, this is all directed by the Police Services Act. Submits those estimates to the region. The region is charged with establishing a budget. That's the way in which it fulfills its role of providing the infrastructure and administration required for adequate and effective policing. The region does not, though, have a line item veto over the estimates that are put forward by the Police Services Board, so it's kind of an up or down approval at the end of the day. And there is a mechanism provided by the Act under which there can be an appeal to a separate provincial tribunal, the Ontario Civilian Police Commission, on grounds of inadequacy if there is issue taken with the budget that the Regional Council is prepared to approve. And again, it's that benchmark of adequate policing that governs that decision. I hasten to add that's not a usual process, and I think everybody strives to avoid that kind of punting of that decision-making off to a provincial agency. Turning then to the people aspect of the Police Services Board, its membership consists of the regional chair, who may decline in favor of another member of council appointed by council. But that particular slot does have to be filled by a council member, and the sort of default is that it will be the regional chair. In addition, and we're talking about a 7-person board, 3 persons appointed by resolution of council. So you can see that council has the preponderance of membership on the Police Services Board. 2 of those appointees by council do have to be members of council as well, and 1 does not have to be a member of council, and in fact cannot be a member of council, and must not also be a regional employee, but is a council appointee. And then there are 3 persons appointed by the Lieutenant Governor and council, that's the provincial cabinet, so generally referred to as provincial appointees. The members are to be appointed for a term of office, and so they are limited to that term, but also they are to fulfill that term. The resolution from council appointing members needs to set out a term. The term cannot exceed the term of council itself, although there is a provision in the Act just to prevent gaps from arising that permits a member's appointment to extend beyond the term of council until the next member is appointed into that slot, just to avoid a gap. But a key consideration is there's no right of recall or early termination by regional council of its appointees. They appoint them for the term. They're not what you would call in law an at-pleasure appointment that you can just revoke. So the member has to be permitted to play out the term to which they're appointed. That term could be for less than the full term of council, just for clarity as well, but typically has been for the full term of council. There's an exception actually in place for this particular term, and I'm now going by recollection, which is a little bit dangerous, but I believe Mayor Crombie's term is less than the full term of council, and that Councillor McFadden is going to take up the term as of next year? Yeah. I'll end with the relationship of the board to the chief of police, because that's the last piece in the puzzle by which the means are provided by the region, the governance provided by the board, the operational authority resides with the chief, and the board recruits and appoints the chief, may give orders and directions to the chief, but not with respect to operational decisions which lie within the chief's sort of sole domain. Day-to-day operations are not intended to be at the direction of the board. The board gives its directions and sort of liaises with the force through the chief, and is not enabled to give any orders or directions to other members of the police force than the chief. So that's the point of contact, and obviously that's a very key relationship. So I think that brings the fundamentals to an end, and happy to field any questions that might result.
I don't see any questions. Last call. Obviously, it's crystal clear as always.
Just as intended.
Perfect. Someone move receipt. Councillor Crombie, or Mayor Crombie, seconded by Councillor Miles. All those in favor? Thank you very much, Patrick. And we move on to the next delegation, which is the Chair of the Police Services Board, Amrik Ahluwalia, discussing the new direction of the Peel, or the Police Services Board. Welcome. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. You're here, and most of you know our vice chair and a friend and a colleague, John Rogers, passed away a month ago. As Patrick said, 3 members, your colleagues, you know quite well. I'm happy to introduce to you Norma Nicholson and Jack Brazeres, who are in the audience. And I'll also recognize Chief Jennifer Evans, who's in the audience. Our role includes ensuring our officers have the tools and the support they need to do their job properly and best protect and serve the residents of Peel. We are the community oversight. And there are 4 pillars of this board's vision and direction, which are important to understand going forward. Number 1, enhance public trust. Number 2, police is the public and public is the police. Robust governance and strategic forward-looking focus. The name Peel in Peel region is rooted deeply in policing community. It's a name known globally in police circles. We are named after Sir Robert Peel, who was a British Prime Minister in the 1800s. But before he was a politician, Sir Robert Peel was a trailblazer and is highly regarded as the father of modern policing. He founded the Metropolitan Police Force in London, England, and reduced crime dramatically. And he developed what are known now as Sir Robert Peel's 9 principles of policing, which define the ethical requirements every police officer must follow to be effective. One of the most notable is the police are the public and the public are the police. In essence, a police service must be made up of members of the entire community and must reflect the community population it serves. Sir Robert Peel's principles have withstood the test of time. However, at the time, he faced strong resistance. But being a leader, being a trailblazer is not easy. The relevance here today is that Peel Regional Police is regarded nationally as one of the top services in Canada. Our officers are highly trained and dedicated to serving. We are progressive, and I will outline this morning, we will continue to be progressive and a leading police service. So with that in mind, what do we look like today? As you know, our region is growing dramatically. Now with 1.3 million people. The cultural makeup of our residents is also changing. And with growth comes both opportunity and challenges. We currently have over 3,000 police service employees. And on average, we are hiring 100 officers every year to meet attrition and demands for growth. And I must add, we are doing this thing with incredible support of you, the council. That support and focus has allowed us to commit the financial resources to provide the best equipment, the best training, and the best planning possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. When you
I
say
got
thank
more.
you, I thought you were stopping.
I haven't told you anything significant yet, just a...
I think the story at the beginning was very significant. Thank
Well,
you.
As I mentioned, as you know, Peel is changing. Currently, visible minorities make up more than 60% of our entire population. Yet, our police service has had a tough time keeping pace with these rapid changes when it comes to the workforce reflecting the community, as is one of our key principles. Today, despite almost two-thirds of our residents being visible minorities, only 18% are reflected in the police service. Similarly, women, only 19% of our officers are women. I'm not done, I'm just taking a sip of water, Madam Chair.
Okay, I'm going to be really good and just let you keep going. You tell me when you're done.
All right, thank you. At the senior level, the numbers are even lower, 13% being women and 15% minority. That gap is not shrinking, and that is totally unacceptable. And it is important to note that this is not a Peel-specific issue. It's a national issue faced by several police services. Even within our Police Services Board, we are underrepresented in visible minorities. So we all have to work to reflect our community. And I can assure you, we are well on our way. The board has taken steps to move forward, and we are determined to have inclusiveness, more openness, and higher transparency. One of the first initiatives was last year's resolution to suspend street checks, also known as carding. The board heard from the community that this practice was disproportionately affecting black males. The province acted quickly and enacted new legislation. And I'm delighted to note that Chief Evans and the board worked collaboratively, and Peel was the first police service to implement the new changes, 8 months ahead of schedule. Once again, Peel showed the province and the nation it leads. Our plan is to continue leading the way in policing. As you know, the board has decided to do a comprehensive independent audit of recruitment and promotional practices. We are doing this to understand what the service is doing right and what other steps need to be taken to close the gap. This is an initiative that has the full support of the chief. I want to be clear, this is not about blame. We are incredibly proud of our officers. They are some of the best in the country. But there are questions and issues that need answers to. For example, why is it that only 1/3 of the applicants are from visible minorities when they make up almost 2/3 of the population? Now, the numbers from the past few years do show the numbers of people from ethnic backgrounds being hired has increased. There has been progress made. However, it has clearly plateaued, and we need to overcome that plateau. A full independent review will help us answer this question. It is also critical to enhance trust of the community. We are taking several initiatives to this end. For the first time ever, the board's budget meetings are going to be public, starting tomorrow's meeting. We are also in the process of opening up a large portion of committee deliberations to the public. We are encouraging community groups for dialogue with the board. We will entertain comments, positive and not so flattering, to truly understand community issues. We cannot be afraid of criticism. If we are going to improve and evolve, we need to encourage open discussion about our service. As well, we will lead in how we communicate digitally. We need to modernize our website. The first point of information and contact for most in the community. This is what we will do. Among other components, we will have important information about committee composition, committee mandate, minutes, and schedule. We also want to increase transparency of public complaints. To that end, we have formed a new board committee with a view of ensuring that public trust is enhanced. This is another first. The board believes in robust government. Robust governance is the board having clear boundaries of responsibility of the board, of the chief, and the board staff. We are going to develop board's performance measures. This board will also encourage following best practices in other services, but also outside the police world, to learn how we can improve our processes and practices. In a nutshell, the board is going to provide leadership in modernization with a clear objective of serving the 1.3 million residents of Peel. Our goals are progressive, we have a plan, and we have the collective will to make it happen. As Sir Robert Peel found out, change is not easy. Leading is not easy. There is often resistance. But the people of Peel have never been followers. We are leaders. So I want to be clear on behalf of the board. Change is already happening and will continue to happen with our police service. To reach our goal, our destination will require tenacity and teamwork. We believe it is the right thing to do, and we as a board make no apologies for aggressively working towards providing positive change to our police service. We look forward to working with you on council to make it happen and keep Peel moving forward. Thank you for your time, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
And thank you very much. Councillor Groves.
Thank you, Madam Acting Chair. Thank you for your presentation. I'm from Caledon, so you don't police us, but certainly this applies, some of what you were saying in here applies to all police services right across Ontario. It's just a matter in which police are policing the community. Thank you for sharing that story. Oftentimes in the media, you never hear those good stories or those good news stories. You hear the negative stuff. So what are you doing as a police board to communicate that sort of thing through media and out to the community so that you don't have conflicts between the community and the police? Because I think it's important to share those stories.
Excellent question, Councillor. First of all, we do have a some association with Caledon. As a matter of fact, the mayor would know that I'm going there on Tuesday. They are reviewing new personnel, and they've asked us to assist, so I'll be happy to participate in that exercise. So we are involved. The newspapers always pick up the negative stories. It is our job to tell the good stories. Our interaction with public, we have had many meetings with key leaders, and also the website. We have a website that needs a lot of work, and we have hired people to take care of it. And I would suggest within 6 months, we will have a lot of information available to public. And I'm a big believer, and the chief and I often talk about that we need to make sure that people are aware of the many, many, many positive stories of our officer. I could sit here 2 hours and I could tell you the stories, and share with the board and the chief. So that's what we're going to do, and I think it's a very important point, and we should not forget that. Thank you.
Good. The other thing I wanted to say is your slide about openness, transparency, and two-way conversations. I think those are very, very important things to continue doing. And how are you doing that? Are you going out to community meetings, community centers, community groups? How are you doing that?
I think there is a change in direction. We are encouraging different delegations to come forward, and we are not restricting the delegations to the only ones who will speak highly of us, because it's important to hear the negative and the positive comments. This is the only way we learn. So I think encouraging people to come and almost allowing people to come and share their views is number one thing. Also, the dialogue that we are having, I've met maybe 20, 30 people since I become chair, one-on-one, and as groups. And the chief does a great job of going out to the communities. So I think it's a slow process, but we are on to it.
Glad to hear that you're not only getting the ones that are really, that like what you're doing, but you're getting those ones who have concerns as well.
Yes.
I mean, the same can apply to all of us sitting around this table, because we're all public servants at the end of the day, and I think it is important to hear both sides and have those two-way conversations. So thank you for that. And finally, I just want to thank the chief and her team for taking a leadership role in this carding issue. It's been an issue that has been very controversial, and certainly thank you, Chief Evans, for taking that leadership role in addressing the changes or implementing those changes. So thank you, and thank you, and congratulations on your position as chair.
Councillor Moore. Yes, Councillor Moore.
Thank you. And thank you very much for being here today. It's a pleasure to meet you here in the chambers. I've got a few questions. First of all, thank you very much for your presentation today. I appreciate the positive tone of it. I think that what we've read in the media in terms of a bit of push and pushback perhaps between the Police Services Board and the rank and file, I think is stressful for our communities when they hear that kind of tension. So I certainly appreciate your message today, that is clearly that you're working hand in hand to do positive things for our community that we both serve collectively. I hear your message about change and your acknowledgement that the change is not always embraced and understood, and it really reinforces the importance of communication. We've had some experience with that in Brampton recently in terms of appreciating how important it is to communicate down, both in terms of your vision as the board chair and as members of the Police Services Board. But I think what people need to need to hear from you, whether it's our taxpayers or the police services, is what does the change mean for them? What are they going to see that's different? How is it going to affect our frontline officers? They need to hear that from you. So maybe you could talk a little bit about, maybe more specifically, in terms of how those changes, what those changes will be, and how it's going to affect our taxpayers and the community that you serve, as well as the force?
Well, great question, and we want to make sure that the police serves every segment of society. We need to understand some segments of society that are affected significantly, who are the lower socioeconomic or whatever, how we are serving them. People who don't have a voice, we want to be the voice for them. Frontline officers, we want to make sure that we have absolutely best training, best facilities possible, but also it's a level playing field. That's the biggest thing for recruitment and for promotion. People feel they're valued, and it is fair system, and every segment of society is welcome to join the police service, and females and males are allowed to join the police service. They have equal opportunity for getting into the police service and for promotions. And you'll see a lot more of these things coming through over the next. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. This is a fairly long process, but we are onto it. We have an overall blueprint, which I sort of share with you the outline, and we're going to start filling the pieces as we go along. But this is a shifting to be the leader in Ontario and in Canada, and I believe that excellent as our service is, we want to stay in the forefront, and we want to continue to be a model for other police services.
I guess you've partly answered my question. Maybe
Okay.
I just I'm not getting there, expressing it perhaps clearly enough. When we talk about change, everybody wants to understand how is it going to affect them. So if I was a frontline officer, if I was a senior officer within the force, how are you communicating to them how you envision that change happening, so that they understand what that means for them? But, you know, looking at your various stakeholders, certainly the governance that you provide, but also in terms of how are we going to be helped and supported in communicating the changes that you envision happening?
Okay, well, we'll count on your support for that, but I think one of the fundamental things is we feel it is very critical to work in collaboration with the chief, because as you heard from Patrick, our main contact person is the chief, and maintain relationship and collaboration with Chief Evans is important and critical. So we want to work together. That's why when we do this comprehensive analysis, third party of our practices of recruiting and so on, we want to make sure that it is there not to discriminate against anybody in particular, but to create a level, equal playing field so that everybody feel equal opportunity to be able to come in and have an opportunity to advance. So we'll work with that, and I think as we develop, call me in a few months and I'll be able to fill in more details. Okay. I'll be happy to do that.
So I'm going to take it to the next step then.
All right.
How will you know that you've achieved success? What are your indicators of success?
I think I mentioned to you one of the things that we are going to start, which hasn't been done before, is develop performance measures for the board. And over the time, I have talked to some management consultants and some academics, and I think over some time, we've been very busy doing a lot of other things. And it certainly is a conversation we have already had, and we have a goal to have a performance measure for the board, how well the board is doing. We never had that before. We're going to do that, and this will be part of it.
When you talk about the board, you're talking about your governance board?
Yes.
Okay. But again, how will you know that you got where you're going?
Well, we are going to develop this thing. That's why we're going to get some third-party help to the people who do this thing all the time, is to develop some performance measures that are critical. Because, as you know, Councillor, what gets measured gets done. So we want to just make sure. Right now what we're doing is putting the foundations, overall structure, the blueprint at a macro level, and also get the staffing done and get some policies taken care of. And the big issues were, for example, the carding or street checks. So once we have done that, and this has happened in the last only 4 or 5 months, and we are doing a lot of opening up of the meeting. So this will come. I appreciate your impatience to know everything, but maybe keep something for my next visit.
I'll do that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. Councillor Spovieri.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Taliwali, for the presentation. We appreciate the opportunity to come before us and have an opportunity for us to question you and also to perhaps get some answers to some questions. I appreciate your experience, and you told us about the police and the great job that he did, and his attitude and so on. And from my understanding is that not all police are that minded, same-minded. I just want to recall. I just want to share with you my recollection of I think it was in Colombia about a year and a half ago. There was a demonstration, and it was on the news where these people were protesting, and there was some soldiers there to keep the order, keep the peace. And I saw this one woman go up to one of the soldiers, and she spat in his face, and he stood firm. Some people, he was trained the proper way to take the abuse of that woman. He did not react. He was there. He was trained. He did his job, and he knew exactly what he had to do. And now, my understanding is that and we see what's happening in the States with all the news that's happening there, and that some people are probably should not become police. Policing is not for everyone, just like being a priest is not for everyone. So I think policing is the same way. It's only very dedicated people should be doing that kind of work. And I have to say that I had a very pleasant experience myself just on Friday. I was going up Highway 10 early in the morning, around 8 o'clock in the morning, no traffic on the road, just cruising along. And before you know, I see the lights behind me, and I get stopped. And I said, "Good morning, officer." He said, "What did I do wrong?" He said, "Oh, didn't you realize you're speeding?" I said, "No, I was trying to keep under the speed limit or just a little bit over." He says, "Well, yes, let me see your license, let me see your ownership." So which I did. He came back to me and says, "I see you never had a speeding ticket in your life," he said. "And there's no record of you ever having a speeding ticket." I said, "Well, actually, I did have one in 1965. I said, here on Kennedy Road in Brampton, I said, I got stopped for speeding." He says, "Well, that's not on my record, so I'm just going to give you a warning and be on your way and be careful." Well, that really made me feel really great. And that was a great experience, not because I didn't want to pay the $50 fine or whatever it was, but because I think that it was a reasonable thing to do. And I was really impressed with that, and I really feel good about it. Now, going back to the change and change is always good as long as the change is for the better. Now, I understand that policing is a very difficult job, and police come across all kinds of people, and some of the people are not very nice people that they come across, just like that soldier, right? That woman with our soldier incidents. And they have to, and I know that sometimes the police, some people just can't bear what they have to endure, and they react in ways that people don't like. Now, as far as carding and street checks, I agree with you. It was a poor method of doing the job, and but again, I hope that there's the police, you're working on other strategies on how to deal with the the increasing problem that we have in our society, here in the GTA especially, where there's increased instances of shootings, stabbings, drug trafficking, drug use, which is a huge, huge problem to our society. So I hope, and I'm sure that the intent of the police, the carding and the street check was basically, it was trying to curtail this activities, and that was the strategy the police were using in the past. And I hope that with a new change that you will work on new strategies on how to curtail these activities, as like the guns and the drugs that are flowing freely around the city. We get complaints all the time about drug use in our neighborhoods, especially in these secluded areas along the ravines and where people have trails, and people go there and they do their thing. I can show you emails, dozens of emails where people are complaining about these activities. So I'm hoping that one of your priorities with a change is to find better ways to deal with these problems that we're faced today. And it's escalating. It's not that they're just minor, they're major, and it's happening everywhere. Every week we hear of stabbings and shootings. There's been instances right here in Brampton recently. So the question I have for you is that, okay, fine, change is good, but do you have something better to deal with these problems?
Thank you. I think you're referring to a new regulation that has eliminated street checks and carding. What the provincial government, I think they have found the right balance between protecting civil liberties and also ensuring that the police officers have the right tools to do their job. They can still do their job in preventing and solving crime. They can still stop people. They have to have reasonable ground for doing that. If they have suspicion or they're doing street checks, they're doing checking against a drunk driving kind of thing. So there are several areas where they have the latitude to do it. What the government has done is replaced a sledgehammer with a surgical tool, so that it affects, it gives them a tool in a specific area rather than a wide spectrum. So in my view, they have reached the right balance. And on the top of that, the government has said, let's try this thing for 2 years, and we'll be willing to make any modifications if we think it is necessary. So we'll be watching it very carefully. The chief is watching it very carefully. And it is a change, and it takes some time to adjust, but us being the first, I think we'll be able to have an assessment of it in a fairly good way fairly soon. And then if there is a representation to be made to government to change it one way or another, we'll certainly do that, just like we did 6 months ago before the new regulations were implemented. And one other comment I want to make as a councillor, you mentioned that police is a tough job. It's a very tough job, but I've also heard some of your colleagues say that councillor is a pretty tough job too.
Well, we don't have guns.
True.
Good thing.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for that. And the other point I'd like to raise with you, Mr. Aliwali, is about the recruiting. I go to the gym, and there's the Wellness Center in Brampton, and most of the young men there are mostly South Asian, young South Asian, very, fit, muscular.
Better build than me?
Well, they're young, they're all 18, 17, 19, 20, and so on, at their prime. I think that some of us go past our prime a little bit. Anyway, I asked them, are you interested in going to the police or fire services? And most of them are not. They say, no, I'm pursuing law, I'm pursuing medicine, I'm pursuing going into accounting and so on. These are the kind of jobs that they really are the preferred jobs. And so the question is, do you have a problem in attracting recruits from the ethnic and from the also from women, or do you have a large number of applications, but they just don't meet the criteria?
It's the first. It's the first. There are not that many people coming forward, and some of that is historical and societal, where their parents or grandparents came from. I can tell you one thing: if my kids ask me 20, 30 years ago they want to go to the police, I will not be overly excited. But if my grandkids now want to talk about police, I'll be very empathetic. I will say this is a wonderful career. Part of this thing is this is exactly what we want to find out. What are the reasons people are? I mean, we have anecdotal evidence. We go, we do tremendous amount of outreach. The chief has a division that goes out, and I think last year they did 75 sessions outside. So what we want to find out is what is it that we need to do? Because after doing all those things, our recruitment rate is still very low. So what do we have to do to attract? If they don't enter the door, it's very difficult to hire them. So that's one of the key things that we want to unearth. What is that secret that's missing, and what extra steps we need to do to attract women and attract visible minorities?
Well, that's a great challenge, because I think, as I said before, policing is not for everyone, and I think that most people that go into policing have a natural tendency of wanting to be policemen. And I watch the movies all the time, the police movies in the States, and the Irish seem to be really, and the Scots seem to be really, really into that field, and generation after generation of children get into policing because somehow it seems to be a natural tendency for those people to want to be police. So I commend you on trying to find out and attract other people to be police, but like I said, not everyone, it's not a job for everyone. So thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Spovieri. Councillor Sato.
Thank you, and thank you for being here today. And I appreciate when you started with the praise for the police officer. I think that's a very good thing. I was very pleased to hear what the board is doing, that the improvements in good governance of the board, because I think that is vitally important. And I think it leads into your goal to attract more people to the police service, because I think if someone's thinking of joining the police service and they see that relations between the board and the service are not positive and are not good, I think they're going to think twice about getting into that particular job. One of the concerns that I have had is the media.
Yeah.
The media.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that, information was in the media before the board even debated issues. And I think the whole issue over the carding and the street checks, I think I'm going to be very blunt, was handled very poorly. It is, according to what Patrick told us, that's an operational issue that the board does not have control over, yet the way it was portrayed in the media prior to the board meeting made it sound, which could be right or wrong, that the board was giving clear direction to the chief to do something that was operational and that was not the board's purview. So, those are concerns that are still hanging out there. And I think it did hurt morale on the police service. And I think it's vitally important. Our officers are going out and they're facing a lot of challenges every day. And it's not the job, as someone said, it's not the job, as Councillor Spovieri said, it's not the job for everyone, nor should it be. So I would hope that moving forward, the board would be very cognizant of what goes in the media, how it goes in the media, and I think you raised that through your presentation, that it's great to have good relations with the media, but they should not be running the show. They should not be dictating what the board does or what the police service does. They are there to report the news, and whether they like it or not, they should not be there to make the news. So I really hope, and I was very heartened by your comments with regard to improving board governance, the opening up some meetings. I think that's very, very positive, because I think relations between the public and the board, the public and the police, and the board and the police the employees, I think, is very critical. We need the public to have a good impression of our police service. We need them supporting the police service so we don't see here in Peel what is happening around the United States, because it's not healthy for anyone. It's not healthy for the staff. It's not healthy for the community. With regard to the recruiting, do you have any statistics? You said that 1/3 of the applicants are, are from visible minorities. Now, we have been in Peel for the last 20, well, maybe 15 years in particular, 15 to 20 years. Peel has been pushing, trying to recruit, through recruitment, trying to get more visible minorities, including women, to apply for the positions. Do you have statistics showing 10 years ago what the percentage of applicants was?
I'm not familiar with that right now, but
Okay.
The point, I think, is that there are some reasons why people don't find it attractive.
Oh, absolutely.
Or
Yeah.
induce. So we want to just make sure that people give it a fair chance. People understand how respectable, how fulfilling, how full of variety this job is, and how respectable it is in the society and by us. And I think this is partly what will come. But I think we have done the easy low-hanging fruit because the numbers have gone up, as I said in my statement. So we need to find something else which is missing, and that's why we want to do this comprehensive audit or review by third party to find what do we need to do, what are the underlying causes behind, what are the root causes behind it, and go lower than the anecdotal evidence and find the real causes so that we can attack it and we can work at it.
And I think that's valid. I think every now and then we have to take a step back, and it's very, you need to take a refreshing look at what we're doing, whether, what we've been doing for the last 10 years is working, is moving up to 1/3 applicants. Is that where we're going to plateau, or if there are opportunities to further increase that, while still keeping in mind that we want to get the most qualified people out on the street, because they're putting their lives on the line.
Yeah.
And, regardless of where they come from, who they are, whether they're male, female, or whatever, we want the best people for the job and the best trained people for the job. I think when it comes to the promotions, I think you're seeing the length of time that people have been on the police service, and I think you're going to see as more of those visible minorities have been in the police service for a longer period of time. I think you're going to see that as a natural progression, as most agencies do. Councillor Sprovieri mentioned, I'm Irish, so I'll speak to the Irish bit of things, but that traditionally a lot of Irish went into policing. I'm not sure, but my brother was in Toronto Police. But I don't ever want to see what, and we haven't had that as much in Peel as Toronto, where, if your father was in the police, then the son automatically got into police and the daughter got into police. And, it was this whole family thing that went through. And, you had a better chance if you had someone else who was in the police service. I've always felt that the best person for the job is who should be getting the job. And I think that's very important. I did want to mention, you started by praising the police service, and I really appreciate that, because I think we have one of the best, and we have one of the best chiefs that we've had 4, Nando and I, chiefs that since we've been on council, 4 or 5. And I really feel that Chief Evans has done an outstanding job in policing. And I was in Denver last week, and at the International Society of Crime Prevention Practitioners, and I was so proud that Peel Regional Police were awarded 2 international awards for crime prevention, the UNIT Award and Constable Tom McKay received the Lifetime Achievement Award. He is the longest-serving crime prevention officer in Canada. And in the same meeting, Tom was also appointed as the chair of the board of the International Society of Crime Prevention Practitioners, which covers North America and Europe. Our Safe City program in Mississauga also received an award, so it was really Peel Mississauga Week at the conference. But as a counselor that was attending the sessions, I was so proud to see our police service honored in such a way. And all I heard from the other law enforcement people who were there is what a prime example Peel is of how to do things right. And most of these actually were from the United States. But it was a really great occasion. I think we were kind of getting swelled heads at the end of the week from the praise that was put on Peel Police. But I really, I would really encourage the board to really look at your governance and your dealings with the media, because it has been fracturing. It really has. And I'm going to be I'm being very blunt with you on this, that I think it's very important that the staff and the board are working together. And, you don't have to agree all the time, but I think any message that is going out to the public in particular, because they need to feel that there's solidarity and that people are working together for the benefit of the public. And they are. I know behind the scenes that everyone is, but I think it's so important to show that between the board and the police service. And as I said, I'm really heartened by your comments today that going forward that is going to happen. So I really appreciate that, and I thank you for it.
Well, if I may, first of all, thank you very much for sharing those success stories in Denver and here. And certainly all of us on the board are tremendously proud of our men and women. Some of us were at a vigil 2 days ago, and it highlights the sacrifices not only the officers make, but their families make. When you leave home, families don't know what is happening. So I think we recognize that, and I can assure you that the board is very cognizant of the tremendous value that our officers bring to the table. One of the comments you're making is best person for the job, and I want to just underscore that this is all about making sure it's a level playing field and everybody's welcome to join, not to have put people with less qualification up front. So if women can be counselors and doctors and premiers, they can also be police officers.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think this is the thing that we want to just make sure that it is here to attract more people and not to diminish the contribution of people that are making today. So thank you for your comments.
Well said. Thank you.
Well, you've been on the hot seat for 45 minutes. We've got 4 more questioners. And I am told we very rarely enforce the rule that we're here for questions of clarification and 5 minutes per speaker. So I'm going to ask the next 4 if they could try. I'm not going to stop anybody from going on, but please try to keep it to 5 minutes and try to keep it as a question. Thank you.
Chair, I must say I'm delighted that there is such a tremendous amount of interest. People are lining, your council is lining up to have a conversation.
No, it's wonderful, and we should get you here all by yourself one afternoon. Because we've got a lot of people sitting in the audience that want to come up after you, and we could be here till midnight, and I have an event tomorrow with 5,000 people.
All right.
So I want to get out of here.
All right.
Okay, Councillor McFadden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will certainly be brief. First of all, thank you so much for coming today. I think this should be an annual event so that we can see the progress that you've made year to year, and then some of those questions could be answered. And it's great to see so many members of the board here with you today. So I just have one question, and that is 6 months ago, we lost our executive director at the police services, and I'd just like to know what the recruitment has looked like and where you are as far as getting a new executive director.
We are on the verge of selection. We've had interviews done, and we've had, by the way, I want to underscore the help we've got from executive recruiters from David Schwark's group, and they've been very helpful. I am delighted at the response we got. We have had interviews, and we have some excellent candidates. Within days, we're going to have the final team in place. We have 2 people in place and 1 more left, which will be done very, very soon.
So you're thinking by October, the middle of October, we'll have an
Absolutely,
executive,
absolutely.
and you'll be putting that out?
Well, we
to
announced,
the-
and then we'll have to negotiate the start time, but we'll be making up our position known very quickly, very soon.
Wonderful. I look forward to it, and I look forward to serving on the board with you in January.
I look forward to you
Thank
coming over too.
Thanks.
Now, that was snappy, Councillor McFadden.
I always am.
Councillor Thompson, snappy.
Oh, we'll see what we can do here. So thank you very much, and it's great, sir, to be able to have the conversation with the Police Services Board, and your whole slide presentation is excellent. I like where you're going. The one slide you do have where you showed where the senior officers don't fit the mold of the day, I find that unique, and I'll tell you why. I'm 55 years old. I'm 6 months older than Nando over here. But I had to say that. To get back to it is, I remember when there was a Shinkuzi Police Force. I remember when we had Peel Region and Caledon, and and why it was moved and brought the OPP in so you could get enough sergeants to grow the force. Having said that, if you look back at your senior force, in my whole life of seeing, at the time those people came into the force, it was pretty much what the norm was. And what I'm saying is, you look at the senior management, 20 to 25 to 30 years, you reach that upper rank. It's the cream of the crop. You have to be good to be that. And I think, we even have a lady that's the chief of the police that I think is just phenomenal. And I think we're getting there. But what I'm trying to say is, from my whole life being here, and I can say within the next 25 to 30 years, no matter the recruits going through today, the whole demographic of culture will be probably different by the time they become those senior officers as what you've seen from 30 years back. And that's what I'm just saying. The top management's pretty hard to ever hit the bulk of what your population is going to be of minority or majority population, because that's growth and that's just progress. But I understand, and it's a good slide and it's factual, but I just want to say, because the media is listening today and the public's listening today, is no matter who's at the top, we've got the best. To me, I think Peel Region is one of the best forces in the world and will remain there, and I see where you're going, it's going to remain there. And I just want to emphasize, those top officers, you have to be so good to make that requirement. And that's where I want to say, through my experience in life, is that be rest assured, even who's going through today, and that might be the majority of the population, it'll be different in 25, 30 years. I'm sure of it.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make 2 comments. One is about, I totally get it. What you're saying is, we're totally aware of it. The thing is, if you're not recruiting more, 20 years down, we'll have the same conversation. Okay, I want to make sure that my kids and your kids don't have the same conversation. So we do things now so that people coming in, so that 20, 30 years from now, we have more experienced females and more experienced visible minorities to choose from. And the second point I would make is, I was in the selection committee when we selected Chief Jennifer Evans, and I can assure you, she was selected because she was the best candidate.
Yep.
Okay? I can assure you that. Yep. That's the reason why she was selected, for no other reason.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I agree with you that that's what the criteria.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was snappy. Councillor Paleshi,
Thank you very much,
keep
Chair.
up the trend.
I will not. Thank you very much, Chair, I'm over here, for coming.
I'm looking
Really
for the red
appreciate-
light and I didn't see it. Okay, there it is.
We really appreciate you coming here today and providing this this delegation, providing us with a little bit of information. I understand by way of Councillor Moore's questions that we're going to receive more information later on with some actual, maybe some factual information and data to back up some of the comments that we've heard by way of media or just by way of word of mouth with the changes that are coming. I want to talk a little bit about the fact that that's what we've heard, the change of the Police Services Board, and I have to ask, do you know when the last time the Peel Regional Police conducted a community attitudes or opinion survey?
Well, there are surveys done every 2 years. The chief does the survey, and they are reported, and we have access. I think they're due this year or next year. Every 2 years or 3 years, they're done, and they're published. There's an annual report they get published in. So we do that. Of attitude changes, we also have business surveys that the police service does.
Mm-hmm.
So they are done to try to ascertain the public's perception of the police service.
Okay, so the latest survey results that we have are from 2013. Do you know, and if you've happened to look at those ones that are actually published online, how would you characterize the community's satisfaction with the operations of Peel Regional Police at that time?
If you look at the numbers, they're about 80% or so, which is strongly favor or favor, which is a pretty good indication of what is happening and what people's perception is. We want to raise it. And second thing we want to do is there are some people who are probably they don't get included in the survey population. I think we want to investigate that, and they're probably the ones that, remember I said, people who don't have a voice, we want to be the voice for them.
Mm-hmm.
So the people at the lower socioeconomic, people don't have computers, people don't have access to internet, people who are homeless. There are people who are very vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
We have had a conversation started with some social agencies to try to understand what are their issues and how can we best. Toronto Police is on a revitalization. I like to think ours is better, but they are on a thing. And one of the things that Chair Pringle told me is that they are segmenting how they serve the different population. For example, what they do in the core is different than what they do in the suburban portion. So I think this is one area that I think, Councillor, in your area, the crime is probably low and you get good service, you have no complaint. We want to find out what about those lower socioeconomic. There are several initiatives that the service has taken to help specific areas improve and get out of bad situation of high crime and distrust and mistrust of the police, and I think it's working really well. So what we want to do is start looking at that segment and say, is that represented normally in the overall population survey, or are there some disjoints? So it falls under the theme of we are trying to serve all the people of Peel.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a segment left out, we want to make sure that they are accounted for and they're heard. That's what we're trying to do.
Okay. Well, I'll take a step back and back to the 2013 survey, which I've looked at, and frankly, I wasn't surprised to see the overall satisfaction was really quite high. In fact, 91% of the residents agreed that Peel Regional Police staff were professional. 90% said Peel Regional staff were knowledgeable and competent. 87% believed that Peel Regional Police staff were treated with respect. Moreover, 90% felt comfortable talking to any police officer. And 88% of residents in the survey were proud of our police services in their specific area. So there's a wide range of and relatively high percentages.
Yes.
And this is something that I would say that an average of 87% resident approval, 91% business approval overall is a very good result. By way of this data, where do we then in turn look at our police services and say that we need change? when the residents' overall approval rating is extremely high?
Well, I think we are very proud of the approval rating, and we're very proud of the job that police services does. There are several things we need to stay ahead. There's technology changing, people's expectations are changing, and the new regulations are coming. Also, the demographics are changing. And the key thing is, you see, somebody mentioned, I think one of your colleagues mentioned the issues south of the border, and it is the them versus us. One of the fundamental tool that we have is to eliminate this them versus us. And the best way to do with that is what Sir Robert Field said 200 years ago, which is have a recruitment that reflects the population, women and visible minorities. We don't, and we want to do this thing so that the population and police is all us, and it's not us versus them. And we want to avoid and prevent the kind of things that are happening in the States. We want never that to happen. Unfortunately, the problem is that we get collateral bad image. And that's why we have to be doubly careful, because we want to stay ahead of the curve so that those things don't ripple into here, even though, something happens in Toronto, something happens in Cleveland or Ferguson, people see police as police. Mm-hmm. And we want to make sure that we are going ahead. And I think doing some of these changing and making sure the governance is very strong and making sure you're forward-looking and looking at the best practices of all the police and other will keep us in the forefront and keep us ahead rather than we wait for problems and then do something about it.
And I agree with you to a certain extent. You look at the United States in comparison, and the fact that essentially we're Canadian, we're not the U.S., and we'll continue to apologize for spilling coffee on our own shoe or something to the effect. I don't believe that we'll ever be there, but who knows? It could happen in time. And let's talk about time for a second. And the fact that you indicated that, and by way of the newspaper, we hear emails floating around that there's going to be an audit of the recruiting process. There's a couple comments by Councillor Sprovieri, Councillor Seydoux, that and Mayor Thompson, that in terms of recruiting, you look at kind of the overall grand scheme of jobs and people in those jobs, the line of professions. We talked about the Irish being in policing way back when. There was a comment about the Italians being in construction and dominating the construction industry. I have both sides of the equation. I'm half Italian, half Irish, so I can relate a little bit. That's the problem. That's the issue. So it's just, I believe strongly that it's just a matter of time. I've sat at the Emil Kolb building and listened to an information session because I wanted to be a police officer many, many moons ago when I was a little bit more fit. And I looked around the room at that time just to see kind of who my competition was. And there were a lot of males in the room. There was, I recall, 2 females. And I didn't, I tend not to see color too often, so I wasn't really looking at the minorities and non-minorities in the room. But I felt that it's an ever-changing procession. The program is ever-changing, and whether we want to help it along or not, I don't think that we can change the fact that history may repeat itself. History does repeat itself, and as time goes by, it will change into what is more relevant to our community.
This board has a different view. This board believes in leadership. I can tell you one thing. If Justin Trudeau has not said 50% of the ministers are going to be female, it would have never happened. Okay, there are not enough qualified candidates, there's not enough this and that. It happened. The country has not fallen apart. It takes leadership to make those changes. I don't think we have time enough to wait for things because we have been doing a lot of things and it has improved, I must admit. But we cannot sit on our hands and do nothing. I think it behooves us, every good organization, and I've been part of a tremendously successful Fortune 500 company for 30 years, is we do audits for critical areas. And for Peel, this is one critical area. And we want to make sure that we do whatever we can to help understand so that we are finding solutions which are evidence-based and fact-based. So that's what we are trying to do, be proactive about it and provide some leadership.
And the only piece of advice that I have to offer then is sometimes you force things, not you in particular, but people may force things and it may go in a direction that you might look back and regret. So, you know, I'm a big believer in don't fix what's not broken. That being said, I know that I've allotted my time, and I do have a couple more questions that I'd like to ask. Moving along. So we addressed the fact that there was some changes in the employees that at Peel Regional Police, and my constituents in particular have asked me some questions about, and they're always very concerned about our hard-earned tax dollars. Could you comment specifically on the anticipated impact of the budget with the Police Services Board, in turn with the staffing changes that were made earlier this year for this year's budget and for next year's budget?
Well, you're going to see the budget in about a month. We are in the process of recruiting the final piece of the puzzle within days. All I can say, I'll just give you an information at macro level because you are going to see it at a micro level within days that our salary budget is quite a bit lower than it was before.
So you're coming in with a lower budget then?
No.
No.
No, because we are doing things differently. The chief will talk to you about the overall budget. An overall budget, I've seen it. It's going to meet the guidelines provided by the region. The board budget, we have made some changes to what is in there, what is out there. For example, we are going to, for the first time, the board is going to be responsible. And I think that comment first time came from this room about a month ago, that this audit is going to report to the board. So we're going to pay for the audit and so it is shifting the funds into the budget. Mm-hmm. But overall budget, I'm happy that Chief Evans and her deputies have come up with a budget, and you're going to see those numbers. I don't want to preempt her.
No, and I have no doubt that Chief Evans will be following all the guidelines with the regional budget. Specifically, the Police Services Board, though, and the staffing changes that have come at the executive director level, has that all been laid out in terms of the money that was owed, the settlement? I don't know if it's all been kind of finalized.
Well, again, no, in the sense that there was the contract that one of the employees had, or both of the employees had, was they could choose different options. So they have chosen different options, which give kind of a payment on an ongoing basis rather than a lump sum payment. So that's all I will say. And I will say that we honored the contractual obligations made by the previous board.
Mr. Ahluwalia, I think we're dancing a little close to an in-camera subject, and we're
Okay.
also touching on a budget that hasn't been presented yet, so I
Sure.
don't think you need to answer that question.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Mrs. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Mr.
Madam Chair.
Counselor.
Madam Chair. Again, thank you so much for coming in, and I look forward to building on the relationship that we have with the Police Services Board. It was very nice of you to come out and tell us what we, in fact, already know. We're so proud of our police services in Peel, and I look forward to seeing you in the near future
Pleasure
with
is
more
all mine.
information. Thank you so much.
Pleasure is mine.
Mr. Medeiros, Councillor Medeiros. I know you'll be brief. I will punish you.
I will be extremely brief. Through the chair, thank you, Emeric, for the presentation and echoing a lot of the comments from my colleagues in terms of how fantastic the police service, the police the police officers have been, and I attending yesterday an event downtown Brampton. The BIA put on a Meet the Beat, essentially the local police officers getting together, meeting local residents, local businesses. Those are, really valuable activities. But getting back to the overall public policy and some of the stuff that I think that you were talking about, which, I'm a big fan of, and because if we look at our own organizations, our own municipalities, I can tell you that my executive management don't reflect the community in which it serves. I can tell you that staff don't necessarily reflect the community we serve. And it's not about if it's right or wrong, but it makes sense from a public policy perspective, because when you're delivering the services, when you're interacting with the residents, certainly someone who comes from that type of diversity, that type of inclusiveness, will have a different perspective on when they're developing public policy. So that's in the public administration setting. So I would just imagine what you're trying to do with the organization. It's not about, it's going to be better or not, but it's really trying to be reflective and trying to look at, towards the future on where the projections are going from a population perspective, demographic perspective, the type of even crime that's going to happen, because there are, when you talked about, the segmentation, I guess, that's happening at the Toronto Police Services. I've heard from police officers here that some of the crimes here are even very sophisticated and reflective of their countries where they came from, or from their cultures or the communities. So it's really changed the nature of type of policing. And I also think when you're talking about building that public trust, it's extremely important that, someone can see in the people that are serving them a reflective, almost a mirror of, and I think that certainly that builds trust. So, just congratulations on, the work you're doing. I know it's line work, and, it's, some of the recent additions to the police board, I have utmost respect. I know them, some of them from big community leaders, and they're people that I really have full confidence in. So thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Well, thank you. And I'll say one thing. Yes, first step of solving a problem is to recognize there is something we need to do. Second is, find the facts, not what you read in the newspaper, find the facts. But you talk about the future, and that's certainly what is my personal motivation, because when my colleagues elected me 7-8 months ago, I told them, and I'm humbled to report the same thing, that when I got a scholarship at Carleton, and I came here 45 years ago, I had $7 in my pocket. Never could I dream that my such distinguished colleagues will find it worthy that they want me to be in this position. So I personally want to give it back to the community, and I think this is the motivation for a lot of my colleagues on the board. So we are looking at the future, and we are making sure that all the problems that are ailing other nations don't happen. We become a showcase of how different communities can work together, live together. We believe this is an important piece of the puzzle to make it happen, which will go a long way in creating an environment where we are working in harmony and be a model for a lot of other communities.
Councillor Rass.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for coming today. I think we've had a really good discussion. You certainly need to come more often. Those around the table and in the audience probably know I'm a little bit of a financial watcher. So without getting into the specifics of the human resource issues that the board dealt with a few months ago, was that at the expense of frontline services for policing? Because it all comes from this.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Okay, thank you very much. I do look forward to seeing the budget coming up. And when do you expect some of those policies and performance measures to be put in place that you can start reporting back?
We are onto it, and that's why I think I suggested to one of your colleagues, I hope you invite me a year from now, and I can give you a report card at that time as to what is happening. But certainly, you have 3 colleagues here who are probably more than happy to speak on behalf of the board and give you an ongoing and real-time update. But we are onto it. Right now, our 2 biggest priorities are to finalize the executive director recruitment, which we are almost on the verge of doing. And the second one is to kick off the audit, which we have conversation already with the Human Rights Commission to get some advisory on which are the people we should be talking to. So these are the 2 main things that we are working on, but it doesn't mean other things don't get done. But these are the biggest elephants in the room that we need to deal with. And other things, once we have the full staff, then everything will start moving faster.
Okay. And please keep in mind that in absence of information, people are going to make stuff up. And we're your frontline communicators, so if there's information that you can share with the rest of Peel Region, whether it's through your other board members, we need that too, because we have to deal with our constituents and all these issues. So if you don't consider us our champions on the front line as well, then we might have some issues going forward.
I do consider you the champion. I want you to be champion. That's what I said. I want us to work together because this is a issue that I think all of us want to succeed in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Crombie.
Just really briefly, just want to congratulate you. I think this has been a terrific presentation. I know everyone agrees. You've been on the hot seat for about an hour now. I want to reiterate.
I'm just getting warmed up.
No, you're done.
That's what I'm afraid of.
This is it. You're done. But I just want to reiterate once again, I know you said it earlier, and just as a board member, how proud we are of our police services and how proud we are of you and the job you did today. And you just happen to also reflect the diversity that is our community. And we're very proud of that too. And we're very proud that we have a very progressive board that is really all about changing direction and help work with the chief and police services to modernize policing. There was just one thing I wanted to add to correct an impression that was left that somehow the board overstepped. And I want to correct that impression because that's very inaccurate. As we all know, we would never overstep. We respect the chief, and it is the chief's responsibility to set operational policy, et cetera, to oversee operations. The board's role is to oversee the chief and oversee policing. Under the Justice Morden report, it is our responsibility to help set strategic direction and policy, and we very much took that approach when we looked at the street check issue. And Morden, in fact, said that boards had a right to question policies when they were in the public interest, and that is very much the approach we took. We did not see it as an operational issue. We saw it as a policy issue, a strategic policy issue, and in fact, the provincial government agreed with us, and hence you saw the change that was made. And I thought that was brilliant what you just said, that the provincial government said we had been using a sledgehammer when a surgical tool was required, and now we have that tool. And of course, we want to give police the tools they need to protect our communities, but not at the expense of the rights and freedoms of people. And so thank you very much, and I just did want to correct that impression that was left.
Thank you.
Mayor Jeffrey.
I wasn't going to jump in, but I wanted to leave your presentation on a very positive note and to thank Chief Evans and all of her officers. There was a very serious and violent robbery in Brampton in August. I think it was the middle of August, and only a few days ago, our Peel Regional Police made an arrest of 3 individuals. That's extremely fast turnaround, and it actually is something that happens on a regular basis with Peel Regional Police. They close cases very, very quickly because of their intelligence and their ability to put all the facts together to make an arrest. So thank you. I'm very grateful, and I want to thank you for your presentation today. I know it was a lot of work. Thank you.
Well, we are very proud of the work that officers do every day, and I think this is another example of that. And we want to, and this is the thing, that we want to keep us to be in the top performer. So keep leading the way.
Well, I'm going to break my own rule. I'm a police brat. My dad was the first Polish.
I didn't hear it. Police what? I didn't.
Brat. My dad was the first Polish, non-Irish, non-British police officer hired in 1950 on the York Township Police Force. And he was 6'5" and 280 pounds. And when they had barroom brawls, he was always the one that went through the door first, and he looked behind him, and there was nobody following him. They were all waiting outside. But when I came home from university one day in a sociology course, and I said, Dad, they're recruiting. They want women police officers. He left the room and wouldn't talk to me for about 3 days. So I became a high school teacher instead. But I thank you very much. I thank you for your lengthy and detailed answers to the questions, and hope to see you again soon. Next time we have an hour and a half, we're going to get you in here.
Again, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity for this conversation, and we need to work together. I think what I wanted to do with this conversation is to just give you a macro view of the vision of this board, and on the mouthpiece, but this really represents the vision of the whole board, and vision and the fact that we have a blueprint, we have a plan, and we have a will to move forward. And this is not to fix something broken. This is to keep on improving what we have. Very good. This is
Excellent. Thank you very, very much. Mayor Jeffrey will move receipt. Mayor Crombie will second it. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Now, Brian Denny. No? Oh, I'm sorry. Gurjeet and Parmjeet Minhas, residents. And promise we won't make you sit there for an hour. Welcome.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I came here, actually I'm the Brampton resident, so I came here for the very high large well, for the water well. But happened, like I like to go for the whole year, like the in 2015 in October, I got only $136 for the 3-month quarterly well. Then after that, I got in January 2016, 138, and the next well, it came in April 2016, it's 272, but this time in July 2016, it came 2,497. So, like I don't know what happened. Actually, we checked the toilet was running the overflow, which we wasn't like it's not on it's happened unintentionally. So because I wasn't know about that, I'm actually the hard worker for the night shift, and in the morning I came to go to sleep. I couldn't recognize what happened. So when the bill came, then you see even the region of Peel guy came to my home. He's told me if you want to check something maybe you have the water has running. So then he find out, he's told me your toilet is overflow. So I like to make a request. Actually, I'm the only one guy who's working. My wife is taking care for the kids. I have the 2 young kids, and I'm earning only less than $3,000 per month, and this is $2,456 for the water bill only. So I don't know how can I run my whole family, like the other expenses. So I did not abuse the water. I just I can pay what I use the water, right? So I like to make a request. Please, see this deeply. What happened? It's not on my fault. It's fault like the toilet, but not intentionally. So please.
Well, I'm going to ask Dan if he would speak to this and tell us what happened and what process you've gone through.
I think, Madam Chair, the residents kind of indicated they had a plumbing issue in the basement, 1 or 2 leaky toilets, which generated the bill. We have offered to come up with a payment plan that can kind of meet their financial pieces, but we don't have the authority to write off, nor would I recommend at this point.
And to the resident, have you repaired the toilets that were leaking?
Yeah. Yes.
Are there any questions around the table? Questions, Councillor Spovieri?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for coming. I believe you're residents in Ward 9 and 10, which is the area I represent. And I want to say that we've had these kind of cases over and over the years, and we had people actually come here to appeal to council, and at no time did council ever, for any reason, provide I guess a break for the residents, and I think it. The main reason for that is because the system wants people to be very diligent about the wastage of water. And if council was to start to be sympathetic to these situations, like you have unintentionally then it's felt that people would become very irresponsible about leakages in their homes, which happens to a lot of people. Usually, the taps start dripping, drip, drip, drip. People don't really pay it, they think, oh, it's only a drip of water, but over the time, it adds up a lot of money. The toilet's the same way. Some people leave the tap. I left my tap open overnight just this 2 weeks, about a month ago. I just forgot to shut the valve off. The water ran all night, and my bill came to $250, which was for one night. And I don't know how long it would take to run a bill of $2,000 of a leak, where it would just be overnight, or take a week, it would take months. It would probably, maybe the commissioner can respond, but usually these leaks would have to go on for a long time in order to run a bill of that size. Is that correct, Dan?
That's true, Councillor.
Yeah, so for that reason, council has never given a break to residents, because we want people to be responsible, and we don't want to send the wrong message out to the public that you come here to council and council will forgive the wastage that occurred. And that's the reason why council has never given a break to anyone. When you asked to come as a delegation, the rest of council actually thought, you'd be wasting your time to come here. But I said, we should let the people come and tell their story, and let democracy run its course. So I've tried before to try to make a case for people who is similar to yours, and council has never supported that. So I'm not going to try again, unfortunately, because I know the will of council, and I know the intention of why we have these policies in place. So I want to say that we thank you for coming before us, but I don't believe council has the will to send the wrong message to the public. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I move receipt of the delegation.
Certainly.
Councillor Miles, did you want to speak?
To staff, I'm assuming that we can fashion a payment plan that could help to meet the budget of the family?
Madam Chair, that's generally our practice. I think we've actually gone out, I think a recent one was in excess of 2 years to kind of spread the payments out. So ultimately, we don't want to put families out on the street because of this. So whatever we can work out, we'll work out.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Dan, you're taking that as direction. Sounds like you've already got it in place.
With council's support, we'll continue to do that.
Good. Thank you very much. So Councillor Spovieri moved receipt. Someone seconded? Councillor Tovey? All those in favor? Thank you for coming today. Even though you didn't get your bill canceled, the staff will work a payment plan with you that's going to take the pressure off putting all that money out in 1 month. So if you deal with them after, you'll probably walk away a little happier than having to pay it all at once. Thanks for coming today. Now TRCA. I tried to get you in faster. We're going to bring up the report, and you're here just to answer questions if there are any questions on the report, which is 11.3. So are there any councillors who have questions on 11.3? Okay, we got a mover, we've got a seconder. You sat there for nothing. All those in favor? Hopefully you learned a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you very much for coming.
Best presentation.
And the quickest. And Madam Chair, if I could, just in the spirit of your comments earlier this morning, I have several colleagues here today. It's actually Laura Stevenson who's running the whole project.
Okay.
I just thought in this.
Laura, wave.
You wanted to know that there are women in charge. And
I knew some wise guy would take a shot at me.
Let's not forget it.
It's obviously a well-run organization if there were no questions. Okay, we're moving to items related to health, chaired by Councillor Moore.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Members of council, you have the agenda before you. The first item is Peel Regional Police Paramedic Services. It is here for information and receipt. Seeing no questions. Moved by Councillor Grove, seconded by Councillor Gibson. All those in favor? That's carried. The next item is the Region of Peel Preparedness Planning for Aging Population. Councillor Groves.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a quick question, and I know this is a concern from a lot of my residents waiting for services from PSWs. And the waiting list is, I don't know, a year. And I'm just wondering, it's tough because a lot of these residents are in their 80s, in their 90s, and if they're waiting for a year, I'm not sure, Jeanette, how we go about shortening that waiting list, or I have no idea where we go from here, because my residents are really frustrated. You know, I've had one resident who she wasn't able to move, and she needed to move because she wasn't able to get the support from that she needed, and she had it in the previous building where she was. So I'm at a loss.
Commissioner?
Through you, Madam Chair. I hear you loud and clear. We have an issue with our home and community support service sector in this community. Not that there's not a lot of good programs or good intentions, but even the Auditor General of the Province of Ontario has indicated that our two CCACs that serve Peel are the lowest per capita funded. Now, per capita is not the perfect thing because you can do things on a wider scale sometimes more effectively, but at the end of the day, I do know for the Central West LHIN, which covers Brampton and Caledon and Malton, that even with the enhancements recently announced by the province, they are having to wait list substantially. And what's happening is only those that are really, really high risk are getting the services. And those at the lower scale with some small supports, we could prevent them from becoming high risk, but they're not getting them. And they are the services from the Community Care Access Centre. There's a teleconference next week to problem solve around this, and I have both paramedic and our community support service staff on it. But it is going to come down, I believe, to sustained advocacy to the province of Ontario. It's that whole issue of catch up and keep up from all the growth.
Thank you.
So it's something I would maybe suggest through Councillor Sato that we could consider for an upcoming HISIC meeting, Health System Integration Committee, have both LHINs come and speak to it, because with the Patients First transformation, there's legislation at the province right now. The CCACs will no longer exist as a separate agency. Their boards will be disbanded if all passes, and the LHINs themselves will be taking over the home care direct delivery. So I think we need to hear from them.
Yeah, thank you, Jeanette. And I think you said it. The key is to prevent them from becoming high risk. So through you, Madam Chair, I guess we can give that as direction or do something.
I think staff can perhaps take that under advisement.
Yeah, okay,
If
thank
you're
you.
comfortable with that.
Thank you.
Councillor Miles.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I hope you can indulge me that there's a number of reports this morning on long-term care, and I think the broader message, they all sort of meld together. As an individual whose mother is in a long-term care facility in the region of Peel, the information in the report is very close to home. So a couple of things that I would like to say to the Commissioner is that the comments and recommendations that you have made in the report really resonate with me because I'm living this every day. And so the recommendations around person-centered care model, I think it's so important. Because I see that with the individuals in our long-term care facilities. The nursing staff and the PSWs, they are able to provide the basic care for individuals. So we're meeting their needs. They're in a safe environment. They have food. They have shelter, and they're safe. But the staff don't have enough time to deal with the individual, and that gets into this whole discussion about dementia and having enough training for the staff members to actually deal with the individuals, because everyone is different. And, I find if I sit down at a table with a number of seniors in the home, and I actually engage them in a conversation, I see a transformation in them as individuals. So it's so key, because for the most part, you look at them and there's an old person inside of themselves, but it's so easy to bring them out and see the person who they were just by spending a little bit of time talking to them. So, the reality of what we're seeing is older and older people going into the homes. They're suffering from dementia. We are meeting their needs, but there's so much more that we could be doing when it comes to quality of life. And I know it's not from neglect from our long-term care centers, but it's lack of funding and resources to be able to do more. So the model and the fact that the province is coming out with something around dementia, I think it is just so positive that we have to start seeing these people as individuals and dealing with their individual needs, not just as an old person in a home. So I'm encouraged by the report. I have a question, though. Where do seniors go who don't have family and money to go into a home?
Through you, Madam Chair. When it comes to long-term care, money isn't a consideration. So the province does set the fee of what you charge for a basic or a private room. But when the Community Care Access Centre assesses someone to see if they need long-term care, they don't look at money at all. They look at the complexity of their needs. Do they have those family supports? Do they need that 24/7 environment? Once they are admitted into a home, we sit down with them and we look at their past income tax. If anyone, there's a huge sliding scale down to even zero if it has to be, and then the province reimburses us for that difference so that we're whole in terms of having the resources. So, retirement homes are different. They charge what they can charge, but from a long-term care perspective, no one would ever be turned away because of finances.
And is that true for the private facilities as well?
We're all the same rules, whether it's a privately run, municipally run, or nonprofit run. We run under the same regulations.
But right now, even to get into a long-term care facility, individuals have to go through the CCAC, and there is a huge wait list.
Yes, so the CCAC is deemed the agency by the province that does that assessment. There's not a wait list for the assessment, but once you're on the wait list, yes, there is wait lists to get into long-term care homes. It will continue to grow because the proportion of our population that are seniors, when all of us baby boomers age, is growing. The local health integration networks that cover both of us did a joint community capacity exercise a few years back. They presented it to the Health System Integration Committee. I was on the steering committee. They've identified that there needs to be additional long-term care homes. The province is also doing some capacity planning. Their challenge is that, first of all, we know everyone would prefer not to go to a long-term care home. So what all the supports do we need to put in the community to let people stay there as long as possible? But second is we will have a large group of seniors as all the baby boomers age. and then it will fall off. So the province is grappling with, how do you deal with this big group over a set period of time that will then reduce, and you have built all this infrastructure. So it is about finding that balance. Both local health integration networks know we have to look at additional long-term care homes, but ultimately the province makes the call about creating more beds.
Okay, that's great.
I hope I
Thank you.
answered that.
So I just to summarize, I do think that at the Region of Peel, we're very fortunate, we're very progressive in our thinking, and I do see the comments and the models that our staff are working on and our committees as being forward-thinking and very positive. But let's not underscore the importance of ensuring that as people age, they're able to age in dignity. And as I look around the room, that time frame is getting shorter for lots of us.
To that, I would say, speak for yourself, Councillor Miles. And I'm going to assume that you've spoken to all three reports related to long-term care. You sort of blended them together today. That's okay.
I will move them all.
Good job.
I'll move them all for you.
The CAO would like to make some comments.
Thank you. This is the beginning of the conversation today. We'll be coming back with another report in October talking about our special behavior unit, Sheridan Village, and the increasing complexity of care requirements that we are seeing there, and how we are working with the province to try and influence provincial policy on this whole area, and how we'll be recommending that we'll be putting some more resources into that particular unit in the short term while we work with the province on that. This will also play a fairly significant role in our 2017 budget when we present it to you later this year. So these reports really are the beginning of a conversation that's going to go on for some time.
Councillor Miles?
I just wanted to add, as you have conversations with the province of Ontario, I would be happy to add my voice to any delegation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Miles has moved all three reports, but if anybody else wishes to speak on any of the other two, now would be your opportunity. It's seconded by Councillor Anika. All those in favor? That's carried. Madam Chairman, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, and I'm going to hand it over to Councillor Miles for Human Services.
Great. Thank you very much. The first item on the agenda is a recommendation with a request for a loan of $1.5 million to Peel Living, and this is really to move forward the work that we are doing on Twin Pines. Councillor Fonseca.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say this is the next phase in the Twin Pines community. I wanted to thank the Peel Living Board and all of staff, and also the Twin Pines residents and the surrounding community for getting to this phase. It's extremely important that we move along with the agreement, the lease agreement coming due this October, and I am ecstatic to move it. Thank you.
Seconder for the motion, moved by Councillor Moore. All in favor? That's carried. And we have two items of communication. They're both here for your information. Could I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Raz, seconded by Councillor Tovey. All in favor? That's carried. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Fonseca on enterprise programs and services. And I would caution that there's an in-camera at 11.5, which will take, it's brief, but it has to go in camera.
Yes. Thank you for the reminder, Madam Acting Chair. Yes. So item 11.1 is financial policies compliance update, and this is for information. Moved by Mayor Crombie, seconded by Mayor Thompson. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Item 11.2 is property tax exemption for nonprofit long-term care homes. This is for information. Moved by Councillor Groves, seconded by Councillor Pleshy. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We've done 11.3. 11.4 is the 2017 Regional Council and Committee Meetings schedule. This has been circulated to the municipalities as well, and this is here for approval. Seeing no questions. Moved by Councillor Maderos, seconded by Councillor Tovey. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. And item 11.5, there is an oral update on the Brampton Youth Shelter, and this is for in camera. So moved by Councillor Ross, seconded by Councillor Sato to go in camera.
Did we want to
Oh.
do all the in-cameras at that time, or?
Yeah, we'll do both.
Okay, Councillor Miles, did you have a question before going in?
And I missed it in regards to the Regional Council's schedule for the month of March. In the past, Regional Council has requested a 2-week period in March as a March break. So I would ask that we could move the Regional Council meeting from March 23rd to March 30th.
Any further comments on that? So moved by Councillor Miles, seconded by Councillor Palashi. Palashi, sorry. I heard my name over here. Councillor Palashi. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Councillor Sato. On this item?
Yeah.
The schedule.
I'm sorry, yeah. It was just, I just saw a note that my staff gave. Just on Canada Day for 2017, apparently City of Mississauga, we're closed on the Friday and the region's closed on the Monday. I don't know, when's Brampton closed?
Is there clarification on that?
Do we know when the others are? We just usually always have the same closure for government within the region.
I'm told by the clerk that she'll reach out to the regional municipalities and confirm.
Just confirm that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
we'll get, then with direction, we could get that sent out to all the councillors and the local municipalities.
And could any members of the public who are here please leave for a couple minutes? Sorry to throw you out. You've probably been thrown out of better places.
So we're moving in camera for all in-camera items.